Media should act responsibly when reporting on children. A statement from the President.
Counter views on the central bank governor's reappointment.
High Court suspends bail granted for former Colombo Additional Magistrate Thilna Gamage by the Nugegoda Magistrates Court.
Minister SP Sanayaka speculates on the FCID.
FCID එක නීත්‍යානුකූල කිරීම සඳහා වඩාත් නීත්‍යානුකූල කිරීම සඳහා අලුත් පනතක් ගෙනල්ලා තියෙනවා.
Cabinet letter requesting for the approval of vouchers instead of uniform material for next year.
A very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to Primetime News. We are coming to you live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. Bringing you the news tonight, I am Joel Outsko.
And I'm Jitendra Gunasena. Let's now take a look at the stories in detail. The 32nd regular session of the United Nations Human Rights Council commenced in Geneva today. The sessions will conclude on the 1st of July.
The current chairman of the National Children's Council obtained a document from the President enabling the establishment of the council. The official website of the National Children's Council was launched today.
There are many institutions established for children in the country. Even if the main institution holding the primary responsibility of children, which is the school, joins hands with other institutes, the challenges that are faced are massive. Therefore, it is the responsibility and duty of all sectors, all institutions in society to undertake this task. With the absence of conscience that is prevalent in society, the safety of children is no more. At a time when all sectors, including the media, are coming together to safeguard the children, some media institutions act in contravention to our goals.
Now, the story which you just watched was the elections of the National Children's Council as well as a leader workshop which took place at the Royal Central College in Polonnaruwa under the auspices of President Maithripala Sirisena today. Meanwhile, as mentioned earlier, the 32nd regular session of the United Nations Human Rights Council commenced in Geneva today. The sessions will conclude on the 1st of July.
Speaking during the opening of the 32nd session, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Prince Zaid Raad Al Hussein stressed on the importance of inclusive and meaningful engagement in Sri Lanka.
In Sri Lanka, the government's efforts to implement its commitments in Resolution 30/1 will require a comprehensive strategy on transitional justice that enables it to pursue different processes in a coordinated, integrated and appropriately sequenced manner. This will require the inclusive and meaningful engagement of all Sri Lankans. I will present an oral update later in the session.
Upon an inquiry made by Newsfirst, Permanent Representative of Sri Lanka to the UN in Geneva, Ravinatha Arya Singha, said that the formal discussion on Sri Lanka is scheduled to be taken up towards the end of the sessions on the 29th, when the UN Human Rights High Commissioner presents his update. The High Commissioner's statement will be based on observations made during his 4-day official visit to Sri Lanka in February this year. When contacted by Newsfirst, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that Minister Mangala Samaravira is also scheduled to travel to Geneva in time for the High Commissioner's oral update. The ministry spokesperson Maheshini Kolonne said that Minister Samaravira will address the session.
Meanwhile, reviewing and repealing the Prevention of Terrorism Act, also known as the PTA, was one of the promises made by Sri Lanka to the UNHRC in September last year. Releasing a report on the PTA, the Human Rights Watch called on the Sri Lanka government to announce a moratorium on the PTA until it is repealed.
Human Rights Watch said today that the Sri Lankan government should abide by National Human Rights Commission guidelines on arrest and detention while taking urgent steps to repeal the Draconian Prevention of Terrorism Act. Asia Director for Human Rights Watch, Brad Adams, said, quote, "It is encouraging that the government has taken preliminary steps to abolish the Prevention of Terrorism Act, but the process is moving too slowly." He added, quote, "Until it is repealed, the government of Sri Lanka should announce a moratorium on the use of the PTA." Adams further noted that as long as the PTA is in place and being used, the Sri Lankan government will have a hard time convincing the Human Rights Council that is keeping its commitment. Meanwhile, the Centre for Human Rights notes that the PTA not only undermines terms of the constitution but also disregards various instruments to which Sri Lanka is party to and is thus bound by international law to uphold. However, the larger challenge, according to the CHR, will be the political difficulties of pushing forward reconciliation when opportunistic politicians will use it as a window to whip up anti-minority hysteria as well as figuring out how best to deal with people already detained under the PTA. While commending the steps taken by the government to enact new legislation, the CHR calls on all civil society organizations to apply pressure on the government. A. To file cases in court against those in detention who have charged against them. B. To provide them with an opportunity for a fair and just trial, to release them in detention who have no charge against them. C. To grant bail to those who have been in detention for long and to file legal action in court against them. On to a story that made it to the headlines this evening. Speculations on the reappointment of Arjuna Mahendran as the governor of the central bank has created controversy in the country and has become the focal point at many political platforms.
The governor of the central bank of the present government did not reveal to the country the true facts relating to the bond scam. Investigations are not allowed. His term ends on the 30th of July, but he is anticipating to extend the term. Now there is an internal battle. Mahinda Amaravira and others went to the bribery commission against the central bank governor. They are cabinet ministers. We, however, are waiting to see whether the cabinet ministers who complained to the bribery commission regarding the central bank governor would allow him to be reappointed as the governor. If he is allowed to be reappointed, the existence of good governance will be questionable. The entire country is watching.
There are charges against the governor of the central bank, and if he is not reappointed, he may leave the country immediately. Then who would take responsibility? Will you be investigating the charges?
There will be no problem. The central bank governor may go overseas in the event his term is not extended, but he will remain somewhere in the world. Therefore, if an investigation is launched, anybody in this human world can be brought back to the country and will be answerable.
There are reports that a new person will be appointed.
I am not aware of it. His Excellency the President and the Prime Minister will take the necessary measures.
The governor of the central bank has become a topic of discussion. What will happen regarding the charges against him and the investigations?
Nothing will happen to the investigations. That is what has been happening. Which investigation has resulted in punishment to the wrongdoer? It is the same for Arjuna Mahendran, irrespective of whether he remains in Sri Lanka or leaves. Nothing will happen to him. We believe that the problem facing this government is involving shame. We can observe this depending on whether Arjuna Mahendran is reappointed or not.
The term of the governor of the central bank will expire soon. However, several charges have been levelled against him.
You saw how democratically the President appointed the Inspector General of Police. Names were proposed. Hence, can mistakes be rectified without hindering the consensus of the consensual government? Just because their pot is covered in soot and dirt, the pot will not be thrown away. It will be washed, cleaned and used.
Charges have been levelled against him from the ruling party, opposition, the media and the public.
I know. Even I am not in favour of it. In such a backdrop, we the Sri Lanka Freedom Party held discussions separately with the President prior to the no confidence motion. This is a serious matter.
Information has come to light that the Sri Lanka Freedom Party did not vote for the no confidence motion based on an agreement reached with the United National Party that Arjuna Mahendran will not be reappointed.
No, there is no such thing. The votes cast against the no confidence motion were not subject to nay conditions. We as the joint opposition view the governor of the central bank as a machine imported from Singapore. We have imported this machine from Singapore to the most important economic centre in our country, the central bank. We are ashamed. We pointed out the fraud and corruption from onset, but everything we highlighted were dismissed and disregarded, and in the process the economy of the country has collapsed. At a time when the economy is collapsing, foreign reserves are depleting and investors are leaving the country. The governor of the central bank is allowed to remain in his position. As parliamentarians, we are ashamed. The incident concerning the first bond issue occurred on the 27th of February 2015. 17 months have lapsed, but the Treasury has not launched an inquiry. The Ministry of Finance has not launched an inquiry, nor has the Central Bank. The matter was also brought up in Parliament. That is when the Speaker of the House was compelled to hand it over to the Corp. But ultimately, Parliament was dissolved before the report could be submitted. There is still no report, no inquiry and no action. Examine this matter. Do not extend the term of the Central Bank Governor without examining the matter.
Welcome back to the news. The Kandy District Development Committee meeting was held at the Kandy District Secretariat today. Subsequent to the meeting, Minister S.B. Dissanayake expressed his views to the media.
It is reported in the media today that steps are being taken to dissolve the FCID. Is there such a situation?
No, the FCID will not be dissolved. However, a new act has been brought forward to further legalize the existence of the FCID. We discuss this matter and it will be tabled in Cabinet in the coming days.
Another phase of the 2016 Samarita program to provide loans to renovate houses was held in Vallasamula today.
During the ceremony held at the Vallasamula National School, 1,159 families received assistance worth Rs 50,000.
The ones who were boasting that they will send the Minister of Finance home and that they would defeat the government did not even come for the vote. They left the country. He is the very person who advised not to carry tails. He has now gone to Japan on a tail carrying tour. No matter what the tail is, he will anyway be dismayed. I would like to mention at this moment that the all great powers in the world are siding with both the President and the Prime Minister. China is providing us with more aid than what he was able to secure during his tenure. We are constantly monitoring all investments by the Chinese government in the Hambantota district. We do not intend to let them be swindled. I would like to mention with much pride that the funds allocated will be used for the development process to uplift the lives of the deprived.
The Colombo High Court today ordered the suspension of the order granting bail to former Colombo Additional Magistrate Thilina Gamage, which had been issued by the Nugegode Magistrates Court on the 2nd of this month. The order by the Colombo High Court Judge Mailal Vaidyatilaka will be in effect until the 21st of this month. It was granted after the Colombo High Court considered an application filed by the Attorney General requesting the order granting bail to Thilina Gamage by Nugegode Magistrate Kanishka Vijayratna be suspended.
Appearing on behalf of the Attorney General, State Counsel Dilip Apiris informed court that the Nugegode magistrate had functioned in a manner which does not uphold the rule of law and the general public's trust in the judiciary. State Counsel Dilip Apiris added that the 500,000 rupee bail imposed on Thilina Gamage by Nugegode magistrate Kanishka Vijayratna had not been paid on that day, but in fact subsequent to that date. Court had previously ordered former Colombo Additional Magistrate Thilina Gamage be arrested over the alleged possession of an elephant calf without a permit. After surrendering to the Nugegode Magistrates Court, Thilina Gamage was then granted bail. The State Counsel, when addressing court with regard to the granting of bail, had requested Nugegode Magistrate Kanishka Vijayratna that in the event he has any personal ties with former Additional Magistrate Thilina Gamage to refrain from examining the bail application. However, State Counsel Dilip Apiris said that subsequent to Thilina Gamage being granted bail, information had come to light that they both maintained a close relationship. Addressing the Colombo High Court today, the State Counsel informed court that despite having had an opportunity to recuse himself from hearing the case, Nugegode Magistrate Kanishka Vijayratna had instead disregarded the law and had taken advantage of the situation.
Still in local news, Minister Lakshman Kiriyala says that there is no issue in reappointing the Governor of the Central Bank. He made this statement at a media briefing in Colombo today.
Those who are speaking on TV lodged a complaint with the Supreme Court. What happened to this complaint? The Supreme Court concluded that no evidence has been provided to prove these charges. The case was not allowed to proceed. What I need to say is this. Once a person is released from the Supreme Court, there is no point holding media briefings about it. It is offensive to continuously level charges at such a person.
Are you justifying this on the basis of what verdict alone?
The best possible guarantee is the one given by the Supreme Court.
What is the stand of the government? Are you planning on extending his tenure?
I don't believe that anything is going to happen to Arjun Mahendran.
SB Dissanayake, who is a cabinet minister, made a statement in parliament that he should step down.
Then you should ask him on what basis he made that statement.
They say that his conduct is not proper. This verdict was issued in May last year. However, the Prime Minister said last August that once a new government takes over, a new parliamentary committee will be appointed to hold investigations in this regard. Why hasn't investigations launched as yet?
The COPE committee is conducting an investigation.
No, an investigation by a special committee.
Yes, COPE is a special committee.
The Prime Minister appointed a committee comprising of 3 lawyers. Didn't they recommend that there should be further investigations in this regard?
That is exactly what was mentioned in the beginning. COPE will be conducting an investigation in this regard.
Then if his term will be suspended after the 30th of this month, he's not a Sri Lankan national. Correct me if I am wrong. He's a Singaporean national. If his tenure is suspended, then what will happen to the investigations?
Just because he is a Singaporean national, it will not affect the investigation. Who is bringing that argument? Is this the latest legal argument being made by the media? There is no legal basis.
Then how come you have not yet arrested Udayanga Viratunga, who during the previous administration was accused of trafficking arms? He is currently in Japan with the former president.
We will talk about arms trafficking on another day. I am not here to talk about that. We have nothing to hide. That is why Sunil Handunetti, an opposition MP, was appointed as the chairman of the COPE committee.
When the Auditor General has requested central bank data for the COPE investigation, the central bank has said that it is not bound to provide any information. Then how will investigations be carried out in this backdrop?
The data you are talking about is not something that you can just check and photocopy. Some data can affect the secrecy of the central bank. Also, this was clarified recently. A solution which both parties can accept was arrived at.
If the government is of the opinion that Arjuna Mahendran is not guilty, then what is the point of carrying out investigations?
That is my opinion. However, I am not the chairman of COPE. What has he done wrong? Can someone tell me?
He is accused of insider trading with a primary dealer who is his son-in-law.
That is a charge. If he was at fault, they would have gone to courts. Why didn't they?
Then why are you of the opinion that the tenure of such an officer who is under investigation should be extended?
I do not take that decision. That is something that is taken from the top. However, I believe that he won't be changed.
All schools in and around Koskama, which are closed following the explosion at the Salawa Army camp, will reopen today. The Sri Lanka Army said that the renovation activities of the Koskama hospital will be completed today. Those schools that were closed in the aftermath of the explosion were reopened today. However, authorities noted that student attendance stood at 50%. Many students attended school in casual attire. Over 500 people residing close to the Salawa Army camp remained displaced due to the explosions. Meanwhile, Western Province Education Minister Ranjit Somawansa inspected the schools which reopened today. I have invited health officials to come to visit these schools tomorrow. We have to look further into the health of these children. We also have to look into the water situation. We have a special program planned. I think by the end of this week, we will have the schools back to its original state. We will speak to the children and decide on what needs to be done for them and provide them with a meal if need be, and also provide them with what they lost after the explosion. We will also take the required measures to provide them with their school books and school wear. Meanwhile, Army media spokesperson Brigadier Jaina Jayavira said that the Sri Lanka Army will provide its fullest cooperation to restore and clean up damaged homes and business establishments in the area. Brigadier Jayavira added that the Criminal Investigations Department and Sri Lanka Army have launched their own independent investigations into the incident.
It is now mandatory for all three-wheelers operating as taxis in the Western Province to register with the Western Province Road Passenger Transport Authority. Chairman of the authority, Nuwan Banikaratna, noted that this step has been taken in a bid to regulate three-wheelers operating in the Western Province.
At present, over 500,000 three-wheelers operate as taxis in the Western Province. The Road Passenger Transport Authority hopes to regulate the operation of three-wheelers through the new registration system. All three-wheelers registered with the authority will be issued a new identity card as well. Once registered, an identification card will be issued along with a sticker which indicates the district in which the three-wheeler operates. In addition to this, a board will be placed in the three-wheeler which shows the details of the driver of the vehicle. You can call our hotline if anything happens. We call on the three-wheel operators to register within 3 months. Under this regulatory scheme, we will provide a meter free of charge to all three-wheelers. They could charge passengers accordingly. We hope that we will be able to do justice to both the passengers as well as the drivers. A large number of three-wheel associations have consented to this move.
Meanwhile, leader of the Pivituru Hela Urume, Udaya Gammanpila, arrived at the Criminal Investigations Department earlier today.
A group including Gamini Lokuge and Bandulu Guruvardhana were present along with Udaya Gammanpila. Udaya Gammanpila arrived at the CID today to provide a statement with regard to the sale of shares of Pan Asia Bank belonging to an Australian company worth millions of dollars using a fake attorney permit.
I have engaged in politics for the past 16 years. I have never been charged with thievery or thuggery during that time period. The right environment has been created. This is a false complaint filed by the police and politicians in a bid to silence us. However, we would like to warn the government on one point. Do not ever think that you can show us a prison and silence us.
Up next is Action TV.
A request letter seeking approval for vouchers to be issued to provide uniforms for school children for the next year as well, instead of the distribution of uniform material, is to be taken up for consideration at the Cabinet meeting tomorrow. Last year, subsequent to considering a letter of request, the Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for uniform materials to be distributed as per the usual norm, but later granted approval for a second letter seeking approval to issue vouchers instead of distributing material. The approval to issue vouchers were granted at the last moment in an ad hoc manner. The second letter was presented after allocations were made to purchase uniform material as per the approval granted to the initial letter. Failed attempts made by the Ministry of Education to purchase low-quality material imported by Salusala and the barring of a fundamental rights petition filed by a group of local material manufacturers from being examined in courts are the bitter truths surrounding the sudden move to issue vouchers instead of distributing uniform materials to school children. The bitter truths were concealed, and instead what was revealed to the country were the discrepancies and corruption surrounding the distribution of material and the considerable cost spent on the packaging and the distribution channels. If fraud or corruption in the process did take place, then ideally action should have been taken against those responsible. A decision may be reached at the Cabinet meeting tomorrow to refrain from spending a considerable amount on the packaging and transportation of uniform material for distribution among the children of taxpayers, as it is not feasible to do so. However, it is ironic that the tax money of the general public is being spent on the transportation and facilities of ministers as though the money were peanuts. The letter tabled on the 27th of last month, seeking approval to continue the voucher system to provide school uniforms to students for the upcoming year as well, states that a considerable amount of money was saved through the issuing of vouchers this year.
Since it is a nuisance to obtain material with the vouchers, a large number of families did not use the vouchers to purchase material. That is the saving that is being referred to.
By tabling a letter stating that the first experiment of issuing vouchers to purchase uniform material was a success, although a mechanism does not exist to ensure that all school students receive the vouchers and whether all students in fact use the vouchers to purchase uniform material, is clearly misleading the Cabinet of Ministers.
A National Uniform Day has been declared and all students have to attend school on that particular day dressed in their school uniforms. But so far, no such day has been observed. When we request parents to visit the schools on one particular day, they do not adhere to it and instead visit the schools several times a month. Sometimes they take the voucher but return on another day stating that there is something wrong with the voucher. It has become a hindrance to the education activities in school.
According to this letter, a considerable sum of money was saved through the voucher system this year as no costs were incurred on packaging, transport and quality requirements. But not allocating funds to ensure the quality of the material simply goes to show the absence of standards to measure the quality of the uniform materials. This letter notes that due to the voucher system, students were able to obtain high-quality uniforms. Yet the reality is quite different. This is because the low-quality material imported by Salusala were made available through Sathusa for children residing in rural parts of the country. Is it not a joke that a government which cannot manufacture quality uniform material in the country by only importing the necessary raw material is speaking about an aim to create 1 million jobs in the country?
Locals of the Pettigal estate in Balangoda who evacuated owing to the threat of landslides have been forced to live in tents for over a month.
26 families residing in the Pettigal estate in Balangoda were evacuated from their homes on the 10th of last month owing to the threat of landslides. The decision to evacuate the residents was based on the heavy showers that were being experienced at the time and due to the appearance of cracks in several houses. Thereby, with the assistance of the army, the Balangoda Divisional Secretary took measures to relocate these locals to temporary tents. Since then, 108 people of 26 families have been living in these shelters. These families have taken refuge with children amidst much difficulty. They point out that even though these tents were erected on the basis of an assurance that solutions to their housing issues will be provided, they are yet to receive any such concessions.
We cannot go to school nor can we go to work. There are no facilities here. It is not like when we stay at home. Even if it is just one room, we ask that a house be built for us soon.
All attempts to contact Balangoda Divisional Secretary Champika Nirosha Dharmapala for a response on the matter proved to be futile.